Hello. Not gonna lie, I'm kind of freaking out, but mainly because I think this is amazing. So I've been building the Kiwi Landing Pad community for the last 3 years, and it's gone from 200 people to 4,000, which is a lot. So I know the impact of 1,000 people in a room who are young, which is you guys. So basically what I want to talk to you about today for the next 10 minutes is about achieving personal success by removing your self-limitations through experimentation. I could talk about the Kiwi Landing Pad, but people have watched me travel around the world, work with some of the best entrepreneurs in the world, but I don't actually think that's valuable for you. I think you actually need to see where that came from, because I haven't always lived a fulfilled life. It's actually been quite hard. And I think as you're trying to find your purpose, how do we find fulfillment? And how do we overcome adversity as well? I'm of the fundamental belief that the best investment you can ever make is actually in yourself. And by understanding yourself, you can understand the people around you and the world around you as well. Linking back to the theme, so this is all about the future. And I think I'm looking at the future. You are the future generations of yourself. But I think it actually starts with you. How do you look into the future and figure out who do I want to be? What type of person do I want to be? How do I want to be treated? And what impact do I want to have on the world? Story so far, by the age of 22, I was location independent, so I traveled around the world, worked online, studied online. I completed my degree by distance learning. I've traveled to over 40 countries, including many in Africa. I live in San Francisco. I've been at the helm of the Kiwi Landing Pad as the sole employee for 3 years. I've also been growing a company called Sasta's video brand, which takes all of basically the software as a service people in the world and basically teaches them how to scale. And I also speak conversational Swahili and Bahasa Indonesia, which seems very random, but I want to see how engaged you are. So repeat after me. Hakuna Matata. So also from The Lion King, but it means no worries in Swahili. So if you don't like my presentation, you might like my photos. So I'm also very good at that. I've worked with thousands of New Zealanders, and something that I've noticed is we just don't talk enough. We're not vulnerable. And I actually want to challenge this as a young woman. I want to kind of break the mold. Essentially, I want to get naked. So the real story. This image I took when I was 16, and you'll notice that the background is in black and white, and I'm in color. And I photoshopped in this phrase, the deepest scars are those that we cannot see. And I think this is fundamentally true. So when I was 16, my friends kept dying. And I was like, I didn't know how to reach them, which is why that I was in color and they're in black and white. So I'd like to try something that I think will blow your mind. Can everyone close their eyes? And keep them closed. And I want you to put your hand up and keep it up if you've experienced any of the following. If you had a death in the family, had someone commit suicide, had someone die from cancer, if you've been bullied, sexually harassed, discriminated against for your race, your color, your sexuality, your gender, and keep your hand raised if no one knew how you were feeling because you didn't tell them. Now I want you to open your eyes and look around. Keep your hand up. Pretty powerful, huh? So the reason why I did that is because I wanted you to feel like you're all amongst friends, but I also wanted you to realize that the deepest scars are indeed those that we cannot see. So by the age of 8, I asked my mum if I was the angel of death because I found that going to funerals was a weekend activity. I'd experienced so much of it. By the time I was 22, I'd faced suicide a lot. So I had 3 immediate family members commit suicide and my best friend. And I want to tell you a story about that I think is really powerful. When I asked my friend what I should do for my presentation, I was like, what makes me special? What do you like about me? And she said, there's 2 things. One, you're incredibly bold. You go get whatever you want, but in a really nice way. And then secondly, my depth of character. So my capacity for understanding anyone where they're at was really powerful. So on the day of my dad's funeral, my best friend came to me and her boyfriend broke up with her. And she was distraught. And I was like, but babe, I'm burying my dad today. You know, I'm never going to see him again. But she was distraught. And I got kind of mad. You're probably mad. You're probably mad for me. Who's mad? So it was only a couple months later when I realized, and I was reflecting, and I was like, our capacity for dealing with problems is fundamentally different depending on who you are and that you can never really judge someone for what they're going through because you just don't know how they're going to deal with it. What I realized was my dad dying was equivalent to my friend's boyfriend breaking up with her, or maybe more. So the lesson that you need to take away, as a human being, never kind of underestimate the problem that people are going through because you really don't know how other people are coping. By the age of 20, I was understandably lost. I'd been through an immense trauma, and I used drinking as a substance, and drank quite a lot. So I was a blonde party girl, I was in debt, I was failing university, I didn't have any real friends, I was unhappy, I was lost. I had no purpose or inkling of what I wanted to do. I was in a dead-end job, and what's more, I was a mute. I didn't speak. I was sick of society telling me that children should be seen and not heard, that they didn't want to hear my ideas because I was a young person. And I only talked when I went to work, and I was about this way for 2 years. So even though I pushed all of the limits, I always had self-imposed boundaries, and I always told myself, if I ever hurt myself drinking, I will stop drinking. On my 21st birthday, I stopped drinking the next day because I hurt myself. I almost broke my jaw. And on reflection, I realized everything that made me confident was on me, not in me, and I really wanted to change that. It sounds cliche, but I wanted to be beautiful and confident from within. So I went on a bit of a mission to remove everything that made me confident. The hair, the makeup, the clothes, the friends who didn't actually seem like friends. Does anyone ever had a friend who, on social media, they seem really happy, and then you sit down for dinner and they tell you how depressed they are and how they go home and cry themselves to sleep every night? Has anyone ever had that? And then you get really confused because you're like, but you seem so happy, like this just doesn't make sense. The disparity is unreal. So in 2012, I hit a reset and I started again. And I've been sort of prototyping my life since then, hacking my life and career to make sure that I can be happy. I wanted to be beautiful from within, so I stripped it back. So now we get into the fun stuff. How did I do it? Now, I spent years doing this, so I can't actually, I've got like a few minutes, so I can't go into the whole thing, but I took three takeaways. Neurolinguistic programming. Who has an epic self-talk cycle that's really mean? Self-talk, like your brain and your head's really mean, right? So neurolinguistic programming, you can Google it later, I don't have time to go into it that much. But I realized one day when I was listening to how I speak to myself, how I talk to myself in my brain, I was like, wow, you're so mean to yourself. That's absurd. You're like the mean girls, you know, by the gym. So I did something different. I decided to actually start reprogramming my brain for positive thinking. And it's actually easier to do than you think. And so I think every time that you use a word, is it really intense? Is it really weird? Are you actually busy? Do you actually know things? Or do you just say I know so that someone will just keep talking and, you know? Values. Now I want to try something too. Can you think of your top value for a second? And on the count of 3, I want you to yell it at me. 1, 2, 3. I love you guys. This is amazing. So I did my values, and why this matters is it's really changed my life. A friend of mine, a couple years ago, was going to meet someone, and I don't really talk badly about anyone. I kind of don't really believe in it because everyone has their own journey. But to this particular friend, I was like, why are you going to meet that person? He's a dick. And he was like, you're a bit negative, Nancy. And then later that night, I did my value cards. So value cards, it's an exercise. There's 44 values with a definition, and you have to sort them into least important, more important, most important. And I came up with these 5. So he came back to me and was like, why do you think that guy's a dick? And I said, he just doesn't learn his lessons. And he was like, okay, the thing is, you're not negative, he just brushes up against your values. And why this is important was because it reframes so many things. I think as young people and people in general, we want to be pleasers, we want to please people, we want everyone to like us. It never occurred to me that someone just wouldn't be my cup of tea and that's absolutely fine. Who's had this happen to them? So he wasn't my cup of tea, but I had written him off. But from learning these values, I actually was more geared towards wanting to go towards him. I'm like, why are you different? I want to know more about you. Lesson to take away, and I'll get into these more later. So, the art of teaching yourself to learn. So I've hacked my career. By the time I was 22, I was location independent. which seems like really fun, and it can be, as long as you're part of a community. You actually need to be tethered. Working by yourself and traveling around the world is actually incredibly lonely if you don't do it the right way. So, 2012, I quit my job, and then I figured out, if I want to travel around the world, how do I do it? I figured out that if I earn $5 online, I can then earn 10, 50, 100, 1,000, and so that's what I did. I got a job working for 90 seconds, interning. I optimized 500 videos for them, and then I started putting them on social media. And then I went back to the team and I was like, people like this content, not this content. Can we change it up? And so we changed it up. And then I landed in San Francisco, and I rang Tim, the founder, and I said, I really want to go to conferences. This was when I got my job at the Kiwi Landing Pad. And I was like, but they're $1,000 and I can't afford it, we're a not-for-profit. And I was like, can I film conferences for free? And so I'd call these conferences, they're like, what do you want? You just want a free ticket? I didn't clearly understand the value of free content back then. And so from then on, I started filming events and doing event promos. And then one day, one of the event managers, after about a year, she popped me in the green room. She's like, you're gonna film all the speakers and then do interviews. I was like, yes. And in my brain, I was like, how do I do that? I've never done that before. I have no idea, but yes, absolutely, I'll do that. Fast forward to today. Oh, I forgot about my slides for a second there. Fast forward to today. I've done over 200 interviews, over 60 hours of recorded time on camera, and I've interviewed some of the most successful people in software as a service, community, sales, and venture capital. So some of those you might recognize. Dušan Moskovitz was a co-founder of Facebook. Michael Pryor was the founder of Trello. Does anyone use Trello? Yeah. So it's pretty cool. The other ones you might not know. A lot of them are quite geeky. So I went from interviewing to public speaking, and you might remember that I told you that I was a mute and that I didn't speak. So neurolinguistic programming, when I came out of being a mute, I told myself that I was shy and awkward. In 2012, I realized I was none of those things. I just used it as a crutch because I didn't actually want to talk to people because of how I was treated. I went from interviewing to public speaking. And I'm not a great public speaker. I just started. Adversity taught me that my worst case scenario is death, so I choose life. And anything from then doesn't actually seem as scary anymore. I drew this image in 2012. And so I believe that personal success is defined by you, not anyone else. And I wanted to be healthy mentally, physically, sexually, and spiritually. And so I created this vision, and so I'd encourage you tonight to go home. It is kind of funny, but you get the point. So go home tonight, draw your own stick figure, and figure out, like, who do you actually want to be? This is your vision for the future, and to this day, this still stands true. Deep change takes time. So 3 things, easy things you can do tomorrow. Don't be a busy person. I, through validation, when I first started the landing pad, told everyone that I was busy. Didn't realize how obnoxious it was. Busy is the status quo. We live in a really crazy world, you know. Everyone has a lot on. You make time if you want to. What I found from being a busy person was that everyone stopped talking to me, so I replaced the word busy with full. So now I have a full life that's really fulfilling. Acknowledge and learn from your mistakes. So I've dropped the ball a few times, but I would go back to those people and I'd be like, I'm really sorry. I screwed up. This is what I learned, and this is why it will never happen again. You can save relationships this way. 99% of my relationships have actually been saved. And then lastly, look after your health. So I have a phrase, if in doubt, run it out. Out of curiosity, who's been for a run this morning or in the last few days? Your ability to look after yourself and your mind is really powerful. And it's one of the most single important things that has actually helped me today, where I do have a very full life. Wrapping up, I want to leave you with something. As a culture, and just as human beings, no one will ever tell you this, or it's very rare. You are 1,000 times enough, just as the way you are today. If you don't believe me, go home, and for the next 3 months, write this or some variation in a journal or somewhere on your mirror every day, and then email me in 3 months' time and tell me what you found. Positive reinforcement is a very powerful thing. So, that's me. That's a lot of information. I think I'm out of time. But what I really wanted you to take away was investing in yourself is the most powerful thing you can ever do, because it allows you to understand everyone around you. So do some of those things, And yeah, if you want to contact me, those are my details. Thank you so much.